The Binding of Isaac is a game that I've played on and off over the past year, and I can say that this is probably the best roguelike game I've ever played. Isaac plays as a game in which you are a child named Isaac, who flees to his basement from his mother who is trying to kill him. Isaac uses his own tears as a weapon as he shoots them out towards his enemies. This game draws a ton of inspiration from The Legend of Zelda, as both games have a similar dungeon layout. The Binding of Isaac is also largely based off of the biblical story, also called The Binding of Isaac, in which Abraham is told by God to sacrifice his son Isaac to prove his loyalty. The premise of the game is similar in the way that Isaac's mom is supposedly told by God to kill her son Isaac, which leads Isaac to escape to his basement, in which he finds many different kinds of enemies, including spiders, flies, and poops. Isaac has to make use of many items he finds along his downward journey in order to stop his mom from trying to kill him at all costs. At the start of the game, you can choose from 17 different characters, with each character having a different starting effect and some that drastically alter the gameplay experience. For example, you can start as a character named Jacob and Esau, in which you have to play as two characters at once and manage both characters' items and HP at the same time, and if either of these characters die, you instantly lose the run. This can make runs with this character extremely frustrating, which makes some refer to Jacob and Esau as Hitbox and Hitbox. Or you can just pick a character like Samson and get a damage upgrade for the floor every time you get hit. I think this adds to the charm of Isaac, as no one run will ever be the same, with each character's diverse starting kits and how they interact with all 719 items, no matter how simple or complex a character is. Also, not only are there 17 characters, but there is a tainted version of each character which take the original character that they are based upon and spin the gameplay in a completely new direction. An example of this is Isaac and Tainted Isaac. Isaac starts with a D6, which lets him re-roll any item pedestal into a new item. This is very useful for getting rid of items that are not useful to a run. Tainted Isaac, on the other hand, has a passive effect in which each item pedestal is automatically cycled between two items, which sounds great on the surface, but Tainted Isaac can only hold 8 items total. One of the main gameplay mechanics in Isaac is the existence of Deal with the Devil rooms or Angel rooms, as the items in these rooms are typically more powerful than your usual item room items. In order to obtain these rooms, you need to beat a floor's boss without taking any red heart damage. This can be done by either avoiding damage completely on a floor, or obtaining soul or black hearts to protect your red hearts. Deals with the Devil have items that cost HP to pick up, which most of the time will greatly improve your run at the cost of putting yourself closer to death. Angel rooms are obtained by not spending your HP to deal with the Devil and instead just going to the next floor, which will unlock the chance to obtain an Angel room instead of a Deal with the Devil. The items in an Angel room are always free to take, but the catch is that you can only take one item from the Angel room. Each of these two rooms are usually the key to winning a run, as each respective room's items are extremely powerful, and some items can even win you the run on their own. Every stage in Isaac typically consists of 2 floors, with a few exceptions, in which the end goal of each floor is usually the same: beat the boss. There are 102 bosses in Isaac, with a lot of the bosses having different champion versions of themselves that can make each fight more difficult. There are a large variety of enemies fought in between bosses as well, with a total of 336 different enemies, with a lot of them also having their own champion variants. Each floor also has a key couple special rooms that you can use to improve your run, which are namely the item room and the shop. There are other special rooms that can show up on each floor, but the item room and the shop are the only guaranteed special rooms for each floor, besides the 2 secret rooms, which can be found by bombing certain walls. The item room is pretty self-explanatory. You walk in and can choose to pick up an item or not. And the shop is also pretty simple. You can use money that you pick up from clearing rooms, shooting poops or fires, or from finding secret rooms to buy items and make yourself stronger. At the end of the third stage, you always fight Mom and can either go to the boss rush, where you fight 30 bosses in a row and are given a choice of usually 4 items. Boss rush only opens up if you beat Mom in under 20 minutes. However, if you do not do that, then your only option is to drop down into the womb. The womb is where Isaac starts to pick up in difficulty, as there are no item rooms or shops, with a few exceptions of course, and each hit of damage you take will deal a whole heart of damage, essentially cutting your HP in half. After going through 2 floors of the womb, you fight Mom's heart and can either choose to go to the Hush floor, which is opened by beating Mom's heart under 30 minutes, or you can choose to go up to the cathedral or down to Sheol. If you took the Polaroid from Mom, you will want to go up to the cathedral, and if you took the negative, you'll want to go down to Sheol, as these photograph items unlock one more floor after the cathedral or Sheol, where you face the normal final bosses of a run. Now it's time to talk about the most fun part of Isaac. Picking up items is essentially the lifeblood of Isaac, and each item you pick up will dictate how your run goes. Also, one really cool detail about items before I get into them is that each item you pick up changes Isaac's appearance in some way, which really does make each run feel unique. Now, as I mentioned earlier, there are a grand total of 719 items in Isaac, which does seem overwhelming at first. However, there are ways to mitigate this amount of information so your head does not explode. First of all, not all items in the game are available at once, as when you load up Isaac for the first time, a large majority of the items are stuck behind unlocks. To unlock an item, you need to get a completion mark on a character's post-it note, which is done by defeating a certain boss or completing a certain event, which means for the original 17 characters, there are 15 unlocks for each of them. The tainted characters are a little different, as there are only 7 unlocks for each of them, but I'm not going to focus on that for now. The best way to know what each item does is through a mod known as External Item Descriptions, as this mod just straight up tells you what an item does before you pick it up. I'd heavily recommend this mod for anyone just starting to get into Isaac. However, for console players, you'll probably have to use a wiki of some sort. Isaac as a whole feels a lot more fun to play when you are able to understand what the items actually do. This is not the only useful mod for Isaac though, as there are mods that tell you your planetarium room chance if you have the Repentance DLC, and there's a mod that makes Isaac do a funny dance if a good item shows up. There are 2 kinds of items in Isaac, namely passive items and active items. You can only hold one active item at a time by default, and when you press spacebar, it uses your active item. Passive items are much more simple, as you just pick them up and their effect is applied to Isaac. Each item is based off of something in real life, but I don't recommend looking up what some of these items actually are, as some of them are pretty gross. The items scale in quality from 0 to 4, with 4 being the best quality item, and many items give effects that synergize with each other. This is essentially how to win at Isaac. Collect a bunch of items that synergize with each other, dodge the enemies and their attacks, and kill them before they kill you. That sounds simple enough, but sometimes it's hard when you can only take one hit before you die when playing a character such as the Lost, who has 0 HP. Some items have really cool synergy effects with each other, like when it comes to Brimstone and Mom's Knife. These 2 items are really strong apart from each other, but when combined, you can shoot out a barrage of knives out of Isaac to cause mass destruction. Isaac's stats are very important, as looking at them can give you an outlook as to how the game is going. Some items will just be a raw stat upgrade, some items give Isaac a familiar, and some items give crazy tier effects. There are transformations in the game that can also be obtained by picking up 3 items that belong to a certain group, which will give Isaac a bonus effect of some sort. For example, probably the strongest transformation in the game, Guppy, is achieved by picking up 3 Guppy items and gives Isaac the ability to fly and makes his tears generate friendly flies that attack enemies for you. Another category of item in the game that isn't really an item are consumables. These items act as a one-time use tool that provide Isaac with a bunch of things, and each consumable is situational, so there really isn't a way to classify one consumable over the other in terms of how good they are. One example of a situational use of these consumables is through a Fool card. The Fool card teleports Isaac to the start of a floor, which does not really sound helpful at first, but you can use this item to go into Boss Rush, take an item, and teleport to the start of the floor, which essentially skips the entire Boss Rush, and you get to steal an item for free. Now it's time to talk about the endings of Isaac, which there are 22 of, and each one can be seen by defeating a certain final boss. Defeating each of these final bosses awards you with a cutscene that gives you an insight into the life of Isaac. There is no actual end to Isaac, as you can keep playing the game indefinitely, but technically, winning the run would be beating the game. Sometimes trying to win a run can feel extremely challenging, almost as if the game was designed to spite your very existence and thus makes you want to become back your money. There are many pros when it comes to the Binding of Isaac, which are basically the reasons why I keep playing this game. Isaac has endless replayability with no 2 runs ever being the same. The items in the game are incredibly satisfying to pick up and use, and it's cool to see Isaac go from a kid shooting his tears to a blood demon that fills rooms with laser beams. There are a large variety of bosses that make each run feel fresh, and each character feels great to play, well, most of them, and adds a unique feel to every run. Each win is won by merit of your own decisions, which makes winning feel incredibly satisfying. And finally, there's just cool looking art that I never get tired of looking at. For cons, there are none. But for real though, I only have a few issues with this game. The Void Floor and the Delirium fight are very frustrating. Greed mode is not very fun, as I've only really played it for its unlocks. The pills can be frustrating to take, as a single tears down pill can sometimes end your run, and the existence of Tainted Lost. Overall, I'd recommend picking up Isaac if you haven't already, as this has been some of the most fun I've had over the past year, and some of the most frustrating moments I've ever witnessed. And I can see this as a game I keep playing on and off for maybe the rest of my life. I bought this game a couple of years ago with no DLC. I beat the game a couple of times and then I got bored, which almost made me drop the game altogether. But once I bought Repentance and the previous DLCs, I was instantly hooked and I've been playing the game ever since then. There is so much more depth to this game that I just couldn't show because the video would go on for hours. Many people believe beating Isaac means to get every completion mark on hard mode with every character, but I think the game's end is for you to decide, as Isaac will always be right there if you ever decide to come back and play the game.